We're going to go for an hour today, time permitting, off the clock as usual, but you never know. Things could happen. So squeeze an hour of time, and then I got some late night paperwork to do. So hope you're all having a great day. I got a new lighting system. How do you like that? Let's see what we can do. Let's see what we can do. Oh, oh, yeah, we'll keep it white. Let's see. Ugh. Yeah? Oh. I'm gonna blind myself. I'm a very simple man. Little things like that impress me. So happy to be here. You know, I gotta be honest, it's been a couple days off. How's it going? It's going well, man. It's going very well. Had a couple days off here from streaming. Much needed respite because I had a ton of work stuff to get done. So, and then work's tough. I'm sure it's the same for all of you. You take time off work. So I took a week off so I could do all the streaming going into the election. And then when you come back to work, you feel like you have more work to do because, you know, things just don't go that smoothly when you yourself aren't at work. So had some stuff to catch up on. No big deal. Things are going swimmingly. It's not a big deal, but I've been very ill-informed of the ins and outs of what's going on with the incoming Trump administration. I have listened to some streams as I've been driving around, so we'll talk about some things on the periphery, some plans coming up this week for me with the channel, but all things considered, I'm happy to be here, and maybe you all will be informing me on some of these cabinet picks. As I'm coming on, I saw Pete Hegseth has been picked as Secretary of Defense. I gotta be honest, that comes out of left field for me. I know of Pete Hegseth, having seen him, I think, 1 or 2 times on the Fox show, The Five. But I gotta be honest, I really don't watch Fox News, like, at all. I used to watch Tucker's monologue occasionally. Sometimes I'll see little clips of Greg Gutfeld on X. That's about it. But I did recognize the name Pete Hegseth, and when I saw a picture of him, I was like, oh yeah, I remember hearing him, but I literally just read that 5 minutes before coming on here, and I know next to nothing about him. So interesting pick. Secretary of Defense, you know, maybe you were thinking of someone like Tulsi Gabbard, you know, Grinnell, but we'll see. Maybe Pete's someone you could trust. So we'll talk about cabinet picks and what have. And then I wanted to talk about the left's continual meltdown, or the lessons they're learning or not learning going from the election loss that the Democrats just suffered. So that's the plan. Again, not at home, so apologies for just having the YouTube only stream without all the bells and whistles. But I do that. What do you think? Does the new lighting, does it look better? I think it looks better. I hope so. I got a little clippy guy and one of those ring lights behind. So we'll talk about leave Abuela alone. So we'll talk about what's going on. Tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. I will be streaming, and I have a debate, and I completely am blanking on what the guy's name I'm debating is. He is someone that I don't think is darker behind me. Yeah, I know. We do have some dark curtains that I'm going to be putting up. I just got to get the appropriate rod, but it's difficult for me. I can't really do much, seeing as how this isn't my home setup. So, what's this button? Let me try something. What does this do? Pin to live stream. No thanks. There's buttons that I'm not used to here. What's this button? What's this guy? Retouch. Oh, does this make me more handsome? Nah, pass. I don't need that. Retouch off. Oh, what's this button do? Oh, I can click. Wow, that's neat. There's a little button that'll save a 5 minutes, and now the next 5 minutes will be saved as an unlisted video on my channel. So I can clip my own shit. Wow. See, I should monkey around with this stuff more often. Anyways, Boomer Rob, always figuring stuff out. Anyways, I'm debating a guy tomorrow at 7 p.m. I have no idea. I forget what his name is. Oh, thank you so much, Kyle Beckman, for the $20. Says, I think Pete Hegseth's a good pick because he's former military. I did know that. I think he's won some awards for his military service. And close to the soldiers and seems to care about their well-being. He's less likely to encourage sending them to war, likely to leverage full diplomacy. I hope you're right. Oftentimes it's those that have fought in difficult combat situations that are the most respectful of our soldiers and the least likely to want to jump at every opportunity of war. So, unlike the Cheneys. So, yeah, hopefully you're right. I'll be honest, though, I don't know much about Pete's service. I knew that he did serve, but that's it. Anyways, tomorrow evening, I'm debating a gentleman. I think he's trying to get into the politics debate space. My understanding from what he explained to me, I haven't watched any of his videos, but he usually debates things like religion, flat earth, vaccines, things of that nature. So we're going to be debating the topic, will Trump be good or bad for the world? I assume he means as president. Red 473, thank you for the $2. Says Alina Habba for press secretary for reasons. That's been announced. I don't like that pick. Old School for $4.99. Someone can confirm, did he pick her as press secretary? Old School for $4.99 says, Rob, I bet Connor over the election. If Trump won, Connor would shave his head. If Trump lost, I'd donate $50 to charity. Connor still has hair. Well, he has to get the okay from Progressive Victory PAC, I'm assuming. Do you think he's still getting paid by them? I don't know. Look, believe it or not, I like Connor. I think it's a shame they took money from Progressive Victory PAC. I'm not going to re-litigate this, but I don't have a problem with people taking money. I'll take money. What I have a problem with is taking money from people that you stand in direct opposition to. So, for example, if the DNC paid me, that would be pretty slimy. If all of a sudden I came out and was like, oh, DNC's paying me and I don't particularly like Trump, So to call yourself a conservative and work for Progressive Victory. But nonetheless, I wish Connor well. A full head of hair or not. It's going well. Yeah, Antonio Brown should be. I agree. Make Antonio Brown ambassador to something. Wick's doing a show in the cabinet picks now. Great. He probably knows more than me about it. Yeah, we'll talk in general about some of the picks that I've seen that I've liked, some of the stuff that's going on. Then we'll talk about the lesson that Democrats are learning, the little bits that I've seen. Least favorite pick so far is probably Rubio. I'm not a Rubio fan. Rubio was picked as Secretary of State, I believe. I do not care for that pick whatsoever. So let me start by saying this. I will be opinionated on specific picks, as is my right, as is every American's right, as is your right if you voted for Trump, if you voted against Trump, whatever. You're allowed to have an opinion on sort of these picks and if you think they're good or not. But I will start by saying this in sort of defense of Trump. He has earned some grace, in my opinion, through how huge his victory was. At some point, you have to say, okay, he won, and his judgment in running his campaign and who he chose to put around him in the campaign was good. There's no two ways about that. And so if we feel he has a mandate to do the things that we like, he probably also feels he has a mandate to pick the people that he wants. Now, it is no secret to me, and I think even Trump's admitted, that his weakest spot of his first presidency was the people he picked to be in his cabinet, to be confidants, etc. So I'm hoping that he does a better job this time. And some of those picks have shown me that he has been putting people around him that I think shows more thought. John Ratcliffe, I think is very good to head the CIA, someone who's been critical and released information showing the FBI's corruption in going after Trump. I think that's the exact type of person that you want leading the CIA. If you weren't going to put Mike Benz there, that's would have been my pick. I would have picked Mike Benz to lead the CIA. Nonetheless, I think that overarchingly, I'm seeing signs that Trump is doing better incoming this time than he was last time for two reasons. One, I think that he feels he has a mandate, seeing how he won the popular vote and his victory was so significant. Second, I think he sort of understands now the stakes and how things are played. And so he's more equipped after having 4 years in office and then 4 years to ruminate on it. I think he's more equipped to be ready to hit the ground gumming, hit the ground running. What did I say? Hit the round gumming? What the hell does that mean? Am I having a stroke? Look, if you see me like start twitching or something, please let me know. I don't smell toast or anything right now. But a lot of the messaging that he's been put out there, now it's just messaging, right? But we're so bereft of actual victories in sort of against the government bureaucracy that just someone saying the right things is exciting because there's really no chance if you're not actually willing to say the right things that you'll do the right things. So, for example, one of the reasons I supported Vivek over Trump and DeSantis was Vivek was very open about like, I want to slash 80% of the federal workforce. I want to get rid of the FBI. Those are things I think need to happen. And I thought that messaging was more blunt and focused than what you were hearing from either Trump or DeSantis. And my big fear, as I'd said all into the election, even if Trump wins, what are the chances that he comes out and does any of this stuff? Slashes the federal workforce, gets rid of the FBI, makes meaningful steps against them. Maybe not so great. So I think it's at least a good first step when he comes out and he's like, look, we're going to heavily go after sort of government censorship. We're going to release information of government corruption, intelligence agency corruption. We're going to rein them in. To give that statement, I think, was good. He's given other statements. His discussion he gave just today, he said that they're going to put out sort of an American university where they're going to have free courses online that discuss a wide spread of information. I assume economics, mathematics, literature, history, civics, which is great. Kyle Beckman for $5 says, breaking, Trump has announced he's appointing Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to run the Department of Government Efficiency. I saw that DOGE, I know. Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little as well. It's a great point, though. Like, he seems to be following through. That, if you read the statement that he had, it's like, they're all about getting rid of waste in the government. That's what Vivek and Elon are going to be working on. It's great. Two great people to be tasked for that. His discussion in getting rid of the Department of Education. He's talking about a commission of former decorated military personnel. And this commission will be looking at 3- and 4-star generals and determining whether or not they should be sanctioned. This is all good. That's all great stuff. So the question then becomes, what do we think about the bad stuff that Trump's doing? Marco Rubio sucks. Ellen Stefanik. Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. It's creating another department seems potentially problematic. But again, Fabian Liberty made this argument last week when I was talking to him. I do disagree. Yes, you would rather be able to do stuff without creating another government department. But at the same time, it's like, what you're not going to get everything you want. It's going to have to come incrementally. So it'd be like if there was no internal affairs at the police. And so you created internal affairs because the police are just operating with impunity and they're just running around beating people up. And you're like, okay, we're going to create a body within the police force that's in charge of investigating the police. What's the answer to that? Oh, no, you can't do that. You've created another government body. Okay. So what's the answer? Get rid of the police? Now, I would say yes, get rid of the FBI, but it's not going to happen. So I think the best we can hope for is to create an institution, an agency that will try to rein them in. I agree with that. We can't drink the Kool-Aid. I agree with that statement. I have no problem with people criticizing Trump. Criticize him away. Sounds good to me. I will criticize him when I see fit. I don't like the Marco Rubio pick specifically. However, the point I'm trying to make here is he wasn't going to appoint all people that I like. He wasn't. He wasn't going to, if you're a free-thinking person, there would have been appointments he made that you didn't like. I think Rubio's pretty bad, but it's not like John Bolton bad. It's not Mike Pompeo bad. It's not Nikki Haley bad. But it's not good. But I have to sort of temper my expectations that it's not going to be a perfect presidency. It's not. Of the things he's came out and said that he's going to do, Susan Wiley, I don't know. I've heard this. Well, she used to work for a pharmaceutical company. It's the same thing they say about Vivek. Maybe. I don't know. They said the same thing about the VP pick for RFK. It's fair to be skeptical, fair to be critical. If I'm Trump, the chief of staff that I want is someone that I eminently trust to do what's right by me. That's the job. And Susan Wiley, if she is the one who ran Trump's campaign, did a very fine job. And if he built a relationship with her that he could trust her, I don't give a shit as much if I'm Trump that she's a neocon. If she is. I don't even know if she is. But to Trump's eyes, I'm looking at it'd be like this. If I'm creating a business and I need a chief of security for my business, let's say I get a Tim Pool-esque YouTube network, so, or I hire a bunch of people. And so I need a guy who's like chief of security. And I find a guy who's eminently qualified to be chief of security who I really trust. But he's got the shittiest takes on Bitcoin. I guess I don't give a shit. As long as he's doing the security job well. So for me, that's how I feel about chief of staff. Secretary of State, you want someone who's going to be dealing with foreign relations. I don't want a neocon for that position, which I think Marco Rubio strongly is in that direction. I forget what Elisa Stefanik was put. It seems that Rubio's going to be the one. We'll see. But that's who's being suggested. So I guess what I'm trying to say is there's more good news than bad, I guess. So I'm not going to be dour right now. Some of these things you have to be honest. You're sort of doing gut feelings. And when someone that I eminently trust, like Ron Paul, has a problem with Marco Rubio and Stefanik, I'm like, yeah, me too. That's how I feel, just from my gut. And so to see people I trust come out and say that, I agree. Now, remember in the Joe Rogan interview where Trump talked about Bolton? And he was like, look, I didn't like Bolton. I thought he had, bad policies. But it was nice to have someone that scared the shit out of whatever hostile country we were talking to. And he's like, you're sitting there and you're talking to like China, and there's John Bolton sitting behind you, and everyone's like, oh shit, that dude wants to go to war. Maybe that's how he's going to use Marco Rubio? Maybe he thinks, well, he's more hawkish. I don't know. And listen, I'm not saying, by no means am I saying that Trump deserves never to be criticized. Criticize away. I will as well. For example, foreign policy-wise, when he bombed Syria, I think it was a terrible decision. I called it out live on my show. I still think it was one of the worst decisions Trump made in his first administration, foreign policy-wise. But talking with bluster and intimidation and signaling those sorts of things doesn't quite cross the Rubiocon of things that I find unacceptable. Right? So if you pick Marco Rubio and Marco Rubio's out there like, yeah, Hamas, bomb the shit out of Hamas, we want them eliminated. Maybe then a country like Qatar that's been hosting leadership of Hamas is like, yeah, screw all this. Sorry, Hamas, see ya. And maybe Hamas is like, oh shit. Maybe we do need to have a ceasefire and like give back hostages because Trump's going to come in and kick the door down. And maybe it's the same with Russia, Ukraine. If Trump's just out there going in and he's like, it's peace, peace, peace. We're going to sit down. Russia might say, you know what? If Trump's really hesitant, if he promised his supporters, if he's promised the American people, well, we're going to get this solved peacefully, like immediately, then we'll keep pushing the envelope. We'll keep pushing it. Let's see. Let's force his hand. Let's force him to say, oh, okay, we'll send more money to Ukraine. It'll harm his popularity. So maybe if Trump's like, I'm going to appoint Marco Rubio, someone who's, now the last budget that they sent to Ukraine, I believe Rubio was against. But up until then, Rubio was a big cheerleader for sending all this money to Ukraine. So maybe it's a signal to Russia like, it's going to be more of the same. They're going to keep sending this money to Ukraine. We're going to get bogged down fighting another 3-4 years. Then if Trump's team comes to the table and says, listen, we're prepared to keep supporting Ukraine. We're prepared to say they can start bombing further inside Russia. That's where we're prepared. Now, are you going to sit down at the table? Maybe they think that puts them in a better bargaining position. I don't know. Am I for sending more money to Ukraine? No. Am I for escalating the war? No. We'll see. If Rubio's appointment leads to that, then I think that's bad. But if it's just a signal that's supposed to make the United States look stronger or more hawkish, then it could work out. We'll see. But we're exactly a week away from Trump's victory. I think he's came out and said things that are much more powerful in coming into this administration about fighting back against the establishment. Tom Homan appointment is as good as it gets. Dealing with immigration. Christie, I'm not a huge fan, but I can't speak super negatively on specifics. I have no idea what this crystal shit is. I hear it all over the place, and I don't know where it came from. I heard Andrew Wilson saying it on X a lot. And I don't know. Do I go to the crystals? What is this, like Superman 2? Like when they threw Zod into the what do they call it? The blank zone? I don't know. I'm an old man. Can I set up a debate with Parker? The guy I used to hang around with in college, Parker? He used to laugh like this. Parker, he was drunk with me. Yeah, I'll debate that part. I don't know who you're talking about, Parker. Yeah, I know it's a meme, but the Trump crystals, I don't know. I don't know the meme, I guess is what I'm saying. Maybe I'll Google it. Phantom Zone, that was the name of it. Rob Parker. Well, I hope he doesn't do that. Maybe I won't set up a debate if he's threatening violence of that nature. I don't know who Rob Parker is. Sure, I'll debate him. Send me his info. He's the one who took down Peanut. Was he a lefty streamer? By the way, that's no insult to Rob Parker. He's probably a bigger streamer, a bigger audience than me. I just don't know. I am criminally unconnected to people in the streaming space, which is actually very nice. Have I been following the Asmongold Destiny drama? No, I just saw that Destiny had some videos out criticizing Asmongold. I don't know why. Bubblegum Gun for $2. Thanks so much. Ukraine is ruled by liberal people that aren't very intelligent, and the left wants total rule. Yeah. I don't know. I don't follow the drama very much. So suffice it to say, I don't mind dissecting individual picks. Unfortunately, the past 2 days, I've followed next to nothing because I've been so busy at work. So I haven't had time to do a deep dive. Tom Homan, I was very impressed with. Heard the news about Elon and Vivek running DOGE, the government office, the Office on Government Efficiency. I like that. I like a lot of the, comments that Trump is coming out with about sort of what they're going to do with releasing classified documents from the intel agencies showing their corruption and stuff. I like all that. We'll see how it plays out. Still early. I'm not going to get doomered because Marco Rubio. Am I okay with some? I don't know. I just sort of explained that exact situation, Red. I'm okay with the people that he's picked at this point. If Marco Rubio is what you would consider a neocon, then yes, I guess I'm okay with that. Right now, if you want to know why, go back to what I said about Marco Rubio. Um, Yeah, Trump's planning to strengthen the Second Amendment. By the way, I thought this was funny as well. You see all these left. So if you missed it, Trump's plan is they're going to make, if you're licensed to concealed carry, say here in Pennsylvania, then that license would apply all across the country. And there are people that are freaking out. Like I see so many people on the left, they're like, well, what about states' rights? First off, I don't give a shit what these people that have embraced sanctuary cities have shit all to say about state rights. Don't care, right? Like, so they didn't give a shit at all, like when it came to those sorts of issues. So tough luck. And there's a lot of other issues that they're hypocritical about. Secondly, it's literally enshrined in the Second Amendment that you have a right to self-defense. So all of this stuff that we talk about, right, with like specifics, well, what about this policy? What about that policy? Gun policy de facto is in the Constitution specifically. You have a right to defend yourself and to keep and bear arms. So I believe it's a logical extension of the Second Amendment to say if you are licensed in a state to be able to conceal carry, there's more justification for saying that should apply nationwide than, say, your driver's license, because there is no speaking of an automobile in the Bill of Rights. So if we recognize, if my Pennsylvania driver's license is recognized in Oregon, why shouldn't my concealed carry license? Now, maybe you'll need to have some sort of standard. Maybe the government says, here's the standard that you need to, we'll see. But it's a bunch of freaking out. Why are they so opposed to concealed carry? I wonder. Because so many of the left want you disarmed. They want the police disarmed. They just want protection for their in-group, and they don't care about the rest of you. That's why Daniel Penny's on trial right now. I won't be able to read a link right now, Lester Diamonds, but why don't, instead of posting a link, just someone's tell me what would this Parker gentleman wanted to debate me on. Is he like a anti-Trump right-winger? Is he a neocon? Is he a Democrat that hates Trump? Who said that I said you don't have the right to defend yourself or own a gun? I'm saying, well, let me repeat. The concealed carry is not that. What I'm saying is the Democrat Party clearly has a war on the Second Amendment, and they don't want you. It's why the McCloskeys got arrested, for example, in Georgia. They want rampaging lefties to be able to be allowed to attack you with impunity. They want to defund the police. And when you defend yourself against left-wing criminals, they want you to be punished for defending yourself. As Solzhenitsyn said, when the thief has a knife, it's just a misunderstanding. But when you have a knife, then it's political terrorism. CB for $5 says the leftist lying media will demonize coming for illegal deportations. How do we defeat their claims? It'll be difficult. Well, they're very good at propaganda. So it'll be very similar to when we saw the ICE agent that was smeared as whipping the border crosser. There'll be stories like that. Some may be true where they'll point, look at this gentleman who was just deported. My God, he has a family. By the way, let me tell you a story. Why is it that we don't talk about that when it comes to separating families, when it comes to general criminality? So I'll be careful not to out anyone getting too specific, but I have an acquaintance, we shall say, and that acquaintance of mine is married or not married, I don't know, but it's with a long-term boyfriend. I don't know that they're married. And it's one of these situations where, unfortunately, there is a lot of children in this family to different guys. I think he brings some kids. She has kids to several fathers. Whatever, right? Now, I happen to be acquainted with this group of people, and there was a situation that played out on social media that I was made aware of where the gentleman got arrested, and the female acquaintance of mine took pictures of it and then put it on Facebook, and then took pictures of her kids crying, all of these kids saying, they've separated this gentleman from his children, from the children. How despicable. And the reason that they arrested him was lack of child support payments to another woman that he has kids to. Now, I inquired a little because I was sort of interested in the story. and I don't know how this normally works. I would assume it's very similar to this. It wasn't like he missed one payment and they were like, okay, let's go get him. It was like years and years and years and years. But the story was, to a bunch of people I know, that's despicable. How could the police do this in front of the children? My goodness, to rip this father away from his children. And it's like, well, yeah, I guess that sucks. But what are we supposed to do? If someone has kids, you just say like, oh, well, never mind. The law doesn't apply to you. Sorry, it doesn't apply to you. We don't want to separate families. Is that the argument? And you might be like, well, for murder or whatever. Well, unfortunately, the people that chose to come here illegally, they knew the risks. That's the nature of the game. And yes, it sucks when people that break the law or people overstay their welcome or whatever, or removed, but it's what needs to happen for the good of the country. And so the way you push back on this is to remind people that it was an overwhelmingly popular policy, that you're starting with the worst people, the people that are violent criminals, the people that have already been given deportation orders. And if the policy works correctly, the truth is 80% of people will self-deport. So for me, the best thing that Trump's came out and said was that they're going to aggressively go after employers. And that should have always been the case. It's what I said all through Trump's presidency. If you heard me debate immigration, I constantly said, border wall's good, don't get me wrong, but if you really want to go after illegal immigration, start punishing the employers that are knowingly hiring illegals. If you do that, it will disincentivize people to come here illegally. So if you do that and you get rid of the welfare programs for illegals, if you say, no, you don't have access to these programs, the majority of the problem will solve itself. Bubblegum Gun for $5 says, America is not a democracy, it's a theocratic republic. Inalienable rights means God-given, not government-given, meaning those rights are not even up for debate. Did I miss another super chat? Lester Diamonds $4.99 says, Rob, if you YouTube Charlie Kirk versus Parker, you'll see he's pretty formidable soy boy. He comes somewhere between Destiny and Pisco. Okay, so he's a lefty. Okay. Sure, I would debate him. I don't mind. I don't know how big the lefties are in debating me right now, but sure, I'll debate him. Tomorrow should be fun. It's another one of these debates tomorrow night where maybe someone's going to catch me. The topic is, like I said, is Trump good for the world? Now, obviously, I have things to say on that, but because I'm literally going to get off work, do a couple things around the house, have dinner with my wife and my son, and then I'll go up and start the debate. I will not be as informed of the up-to-date cabinet appointments and stuff like that. So maybe that's what the debate will come about. Well, Marco Rubio's shit, or, Vivek Ramaswamy shit in his role or whatever. We'll see. But I'm excited to debate. That sounds good to me. I like debating, and I'm pretty good at it. So tomorrow night will be fun. Rob versus Dan Destiny League. I don't know some of these people, sorry. So that's my feelings on sort of some of the appointments, and we'll see. We'll see what happens to civics. I would caution people this. This is what I'll say, and it maybe is the most worthless thing to say, but I think it's worth pointing out. To those that think, oh, we shouldn't criticize Trump, you're making a huge mistake. You should criticize Trump. You should criticize me. You should criticize everyone. Everyone's open for criticism. There's ways to do it. Your loved ones, be less harsh. So when you're criticizing your wife or your child or your husband or your parents, maybe a little lighter touch. But for me, one of the most annoying things was always people that were unwilling to call out when they thought Trump did something wrong. This is one of the places where I think that a lot of the never Trumpers, I welcome their criticism of Trump now. So like a lot of the dissent, like someone like John Burke. Good. I'm glad that there's people out there that are like fiscal conservatives that are going to hold Trump's feet to the fire. That's good. Now, what sort of influence will those people have directly over Trump? Maybe not a lot, but I think it helps with the rest of us, especially if the criticism is coming from a place of good faith. So I welcome that. However, what I would caution you is we're a week away from Trump's victory. I'm not going to get doomer pilled because Marco Rubio was appointed Secretary of State. I think I think that's a really bad idea. So somewhere in between that, be open to skepticism, healthy criticism, but don't freak out. Now, maybe that's not saying anything. You're like, well, boy, you're up. And let me criticize myself here for a moment. I hate when people make like deep takes like that, you know? I don't, hate's not the right word, but sometimes I'm like, okay. Like when I was on Jake Rattlesnake uh, the other day and the aristocratic utensil spoon, he's like, you know, people say politics is downstream of culture, but the truth is culture is downstream of power. It's like, yeah, but what is that really saying? Like, people that have different forms of power influence culture and politics and everything else. Yeah, I guess. That still doesn't mean that politics isn't downstream of culture, you know. It sounds like, oh, wow, that's a deep thought. But sometimes you look into it and it's like, eh. I see that a lot on sort of these spaces. Like, maybe it's just because I'm a very simple man. I'm just a regular hillbilly. So a lot of times I think, and I'm used to this from debate, where people be talking with all these like $10 words and shit, and you're like, oh, okay, sure. Go watch my debate with that guy Sage Outcast from like 2 or 3 weeks ago. That was very similar to that. A guy who clearly is involved in a specific industry, the shipping industry, and so he could talk with some jargon from that industry, and we're all supposed to go like, oh! But what he didn't expect was my vast knowledge of counter-thriftity. Did not expect that. So if you've missed that debate, go check up on that. Now, let's talk, because I'm only going to be here for another 25 minutes, let's talk about some of the left-wing reactions. So I put up a short today about specifically David Pakman. David Pakman has been saying that there's been a bunch of left-wing streamers like him that have been losing subscribers, which has resulted in the algorithm on places like YouTube hasn't been as favorable to them. MSNBC apparently is going to be sold, which is really funny. Alex Jones should buy it. Maybe Elon Musk should buy it. And I've watched some here and there, MSNBC, you know, some of the left-wing streamers and how they're dealing with this. Listen, to me, it's sort of a double-edged sword. On one hand, I think that some of the meltdown that you see from some of the people on the left, like, for example, those on MSNBC that are sort of doubling down on, well, it's because the country's racist and misogynist. On one hand, you're like, good, keep going with that line. Because inevitably, that will hemorrhage you supporters, both as a news network, but also as a political party. It will. Now, the truth is, I disagree with the idea that this is the death knell for the Democratic Party. Scott Adams has said that. He said they're in an infinite loop where their core support at this point is so invested in identity politics and wokeism that they can't afford to retract from that. But the more they double down on it, the more they'll hemorrhage all the other people in the country one by one. And so the Democratic Party is basically in this death spiral. I don't think that's the case, because I think what that leaves out is people have a short memory. Remember, everyone said when Barack Obama was elected that was it, the Republican Party was done. Now, granted, they were out of power for 8 years, but that's what they said. It did resurface as something different, as the Trump Party, as the MAGA Party, but you see the lesson. Same has been true of countless other times when a political party suffers a crushing defeat, that's the end for the other party. All it would take is for the economy to do poorly, which it may well do. Let me be clear on that. The lockdowns, and there is blame to be spread, not only with the Republicans, but also Trump. The lockdowns and spending in 2020, I had said we will be suffering the economic ramifications for that for at least a decade. And I know that they've tried massively spending to try to smooth over these warts, and we've had manipulation of the government numbers to try to help Joe Biden. But the truth is, we're likely to see an official recession. Maybe, maybe not. I think that the signs are pointing that way. If that happens, or if, whether it be Trump's fault or not, there is economic decline, the Republicans will pay in 2026. And they may in 2028 as well. So, yes, the messaging's important, the storytelling's important. So much of the shit that the Democratic Party has done is so unlikable by average people. They're just becoming more and more extreme. But they're not so unpopular that if it hits people in the pocketbook and they think, hey, I actually think the Democrats will do better for me financially, that they would go over there. They would. Is there potentially a place where average people would say is enough's enough? Maybe, but that's a far place. So I don't believe this idea. Now, I do think that all things equal, that harms the Democratic Party significantly. Like the trans issues, a lot of the woke stuff, it does. It harms them. And if you have close elections where it's like, we're not quite sure which party would be better financially, foreign policy-wise, that will cost them. So on one hand, I'm like, fine, keep doubling down. Go ahead. It's going to help the people I want to see get elected. But on the other hand, I would actually like a country that could get back to like sensible people on both sides of the ledger, sort of arguing things. Even outside of politics, I would like our culture to not be like every time you disagree with someone, it's because they're a racist. That would be nice. I'd love to see this woke shit collapse. So, I don't know. I was watching Adam and Sitch, listening to Adam and Sitch the other day, and they were playing all these clips from MSNBC. It's insanity. It's just insanity, these people doubling down. You know, you saw the clip probably of the guy that was like, I'm not going to let you misgender people, because the guy was like, you can't have men competing against women. They're not men! They're trans women! Okay, dude, you keep doubling down. Have at her. I told all of you, the best, I thought both objectively, and anecdotally, with me talking to so many people here in a swing state like Pennsylvania, where you saw a political ad every other commercial, when I asked people, what was the ad that you thought was the most effective, and I probably asked 10 to 20 people this, and every single one was like, even people that were voting for Democrats and voting for Kamala was like, the ad where Trump's team and in our state, Dave McCormick put out that was, we're for you. The Democrats are for they, them. People are fed up with that shit. They're tired of it. And Sitch and Adam were talking about this a little. It's like, you know, it's offensive that the Democrats say this is just a fringe issue because people were, okay, Adam and Sitch are right on some of this where they're like, the first thing is this, it's not just a fringe issue because when you hear the ad that's like Kamala wants to pay for transgender surgery for illegals in prison, what it does is it illustrates that they aren't fiscally responsible, that they give a shit more about this fringe stuff than they care about the people of this country. So it doesn't matter if they're putting two and two together in one ad. They're looking at something like the fires in Maui, and they're like, geez, why did those people struggle to get help so much? Or maybe they know a veteran that's got poor health care. Or they see homeless drug addicts on the street if they live in a lot of these cities. Or they know someone who's fallen on financial hardship. And they're like, wow, those people struggle. And it's like the government doesn't give a shit. Meanwhile, my taxes are going up. I'm not doing as well financially because of inflation. And where's the money going? Okay, I'm an American. Most Americans are like, they understand, okay, I'm going to be taxed to some degree. There's not a lot of ANCAPs, so I'm going to be taxed to some degree. I just want that money to be spent intelligently. It's one of the reasons that Rand Paul always does a great job in Festivus, right? On his airing of the grievances. It's always just millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of dollars of government waste. Oh, they did a $50 million study on like whether bees like rock music or country music. And you're just like, what is this shit? You know? And so that trans issue, it's like, here's an issue that we don't like anyways. Even if it doesn't directly affect my daughter right now, it may. They may have to compete against a biological male at some point. And this is where the priority of the Democratic Party is, financially. And it goes even further than that now. Because it's not just about, and people have difficulty articulating this because I think most people, as you can see this lesson, they're afraid, it's getting better, but people are afraid to endorse Trump publicly or endorse ideas that are considered anti-woke, because you'll get called a racist. I have at least 3 friends that reached out to me and told me, listen, some of them voted for Trump, some didn't. But they were like, I have to, when I'm at work, my job is everybody's anti-Trump. So you have to sit there and be like, yes, Trump's the worst. Yeah, well, and just listen to people. And you can't be like, well, I voted for him, or, well, I didn't vote for him, but he makes some good points. You just got to be like, yeah. So there's a lot of people that are afraid to say the following: you don't want this trans shit in schools, period, public, end of story. Because despite the gaslighting, the truth is they are transing the kids. That's the truth. And I don't mean that they're literally doing surgeries on them or even giving them hormone blockers. But much like critical race theory existed, and we were told for years, no, it doesn't exist. But if it does exist, it's good. You remember I debated a guy named Jangles on this. And we were talking about how I define critical race theory. And I talked about how, like, you know, some of the creators of critical, like, D'Angelo and some of these other people that created critical race theory, they were wanting to create basically progressive activists. And I was like, that's what they're using these schools for. Schools shouldn't be about creating activists for your son. They should be about teaching. That's mathematics, history, writing, literature. That's what schools should be about, not creating activists for your cultural or political movement. And Jangles, who argued it's not happening, said, well, of course that's happening, and it's good. We do want to create activists for good causes. And I said, do you think Trump and MAGA are racist? And he says, absolutely. And I say, should we be using public dollars to go to schools to train activists against Trump and Republicans? Absolutely, he says. It's just eminently true that they're racist, and we should be creating anti-activist racists with government dollars in schools. Right, that's the point. We were told it wasn't happening, but in reality it is happening. It's the same with all of this LGBT non-binary stuff. The truth is, when you attack some identities as being oppressors, white people, men, straight people, wealthy people, Republicans, whatever, Christians, you know the game, you know the cultural Marxist game. What happens is victimhood or being the oppressed becomes what you want to strive for. And so if you were a white, straight person, you lose out on that victimhood cred. Unless you're trans, unless you're non-binary. It's a great way to go to the top of the oppressed status. And that's what's happening. That's why we see such a rash. In some schools, it's like 50% of kids identify as LGBT. Kids! And people see this shit. You see on your emails you're getting at work, everybody's got their pronouns now. You see it on X, everybody's got their pronouns. And at some point you roll your eyes and you're like, this shit's ridiculous. I'm tired of this shit. And yeah, it seems like, oh, it's just benign. Who gives a shit? And I certainly don't care at the surface level. I'll use someone's pronouns if they ask me to. One, because most of the time it's on these sort of spaces and it's a terms of service issue. Secondly, if you're polite and you ask me for something small like that, sure. If you demand it of me, then kiss my ass. But if you ask me, my friend came up to me and said, hey, I want you to call me Jim now instead of Tony, I'd be like, okay, man, if that's sure, why not? The truth is, people feel this culturally. They feel that they're being bullied by shit that's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It would be as ridiculous if, you know, people that have voices in their head demanded that we all recognize that those voices are real. And you might be like, sure, I guess I don't give a shit in this one instant. But at some point then when you saw 50% of people in school, 50% of kids in school were like, yeah, and I hear voices in my head and they're also real. At some point you'd be like, yeah, this shit's crazy. This is crazy. Too much. And it also symbolizes so much what the Democratic Party is. This absurd wokeism. And then, of course, you see they can't help but double down after the elections, most of them. Oh, it's racist misogyny. That's why Kamala lost. And it's unbelievable. Like, they have, not only do they have no ability for self-reflection, but they can't even double down intelligently. Right? Like, how many times have you heard this? Kamala ran a perfect campaign. She ran a perfect campaign. And it was just racism and misogyny. I've heard this several times from pundits on like places like MSNBC. What are you talking about? She ran a perfect campaign? A perfect campaign? Not only was it not perfect, it was abject shit. And they're just like, I can't figure it out. It was a perfect campaign. So it has to be racism. It has to be misogyny. That's what Alan Lichtman said. You know, the 13 keys sign guy. Well, why were his keys wrong this time? He didn't expect how racist and misogynist the American people were. You mean the same American people that voted for Obama? All of a sudden they become racist? Or is it just black women? What a load of shit. But hey, double down. That's what'll get people to vote for you. Hey, you're all a bunch of bigots that didn't vote for Kamala. So vote for us next time. I'm sure you'll browbeat people into that. I saw Cenk on the Young Turks. He's talking. He's got two people on, and Cenk's like, well, we need to get away from the trans issue. I don't think we have to defend it, blah, blah. And the other two people are like, no, we need to double down. We can't leave trans people in the lurch. We have to defend them playing sports with biological females. And Cenk's, he can't even say, because he's stuck on the left and he knows how rabid their supporters are, and he's sort of hinting at that. But the answer is, nah, fuck that. No, fuck off. That's not a basic human right. Much like me as a 40-year-old man, it's not a basic human right that I can go play t-ball with a bunch of 6-year-olds. Nope, sorry. Doesn't work that way. Are there 40-year-olds that would be worse competitively against 6-year-olds? Sure, they can exist. Maybe people with infirmaries, things of that nature. Nonetheless, just like, yes, there are absolutely biological women that could beat a transgender person. But that doesn't mean that there's not usually a competitive advantage. Everybody knows it, and we all had to pretend that it didn't exist. That's what all the scientists told us. Now we have to leave it go. Bullshit. Nope. But Cenk can't say that. And so it's very similar. Like, I'll draw an analogy to something else. So here you have Cenk. It's trying to like have the slightest amount of introspection. Why Democrats lose? Well, maybe this trans shit was a bridge too far. And then the first response you get from his crew is, no one ran on that. Well, yeah, you did. Because Trump made that a key part of his messaging, and y'all never rebutted it. Kamala Harris could have came out and said anything to those ads. Yeah, okay, it's something I suggested in 2020. It was stupid. Clearly, biological men shouldn't be competing in female sports. Clearly, we shouldn't be funding transgender surgeries for criminals. Yeah, it was wrong. It was stupid. I was swept up in a wave. Now that I've thought about it, it's clearly stupid. But she didn't say that. She didn't. So then after the, we didn't run on it campaign, they're like, well, actually it's a good thing. And so it's funny, Cenk's trying to be like, hey, even if we think this is a good thing, maybe Democrats should pull back and not talk about it. And even the two people that are guests on the show are like, no, we can't do that. To pull back means we're being bigoted against trans people, which is sort of what Scott Adams was. They can't get away from it. It was very similar to how, like, Cenk's like Pisco, right? So Pisco does, after Joe Biden called Trump supporters garbage, Pisco does his like, oh, no, there was an apostrophe. He didn't call Trump supporters garbage. He called Tony Hinchcliffe's statement garbage. There was an apostrophe. Trust me, there was an apostrophe. And then he brings on his two co-hosts, his Progressive Victory PAC co-host, Econoboy and Pondering. And they proceed to talk about, well, what percentage of Trump supporters are garbage? So after doing this whole, oh, no, we would never call Trump supporters garbage. Biden would never say that. But how many of them are garbage? That's like Cenk. Oh, we need to get away from these trans issues. But actually, the trans issues are super important. We need to talk about them. Okie dokie. You keep doubling down. You got it. Have at her. Then, of course, you have, like, the left-wing streamers, and they're freaking out, whatever. I don't even have to mention specific people by name. You've seen it. You know what's going on. It's a joke. I'm not going to pretend there weren't right-wingers that didn't freak out to some extent in the streaming community when Trump lost in 2020. But I didn't. I said, what can I do better? Where was our messaging wrong? Where did we strategically go wrong? Where did I go strategically wrong? And I tried to make adjustments. My free advice, which I very rarely give because who the hell am I to give advice to anyone, but I'm pretty confident I'm right about this. After a little self-reflection, what Democrats should try to do is stop calling everyone that disagrees with them Hitler and Nazis and racists and misogynists, and instead say, yeah, we have some different viewpoints. We'd be happy to talk to you, hash it out. We think we have better policies, though. That's it. That's a great first step. And unfortunately, they're doubling down. Or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. I don't know what to say. I mean, it's just insanity. All right, we got 5 more minutes. Anything specifically anyone wanted to ask me? Thank you so much. It's nice. I had about 150, 160 people here just from a mobile stream. So reminder, tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'll be debating some gentleman whose name I forget on whether or not Trump will be good or bad for the world. I think he's debated flat earth and stuff, so I'm thinking of just being a huge prick and just being like, listen, I have connections to the GOP here in Pennsylvania, and they told me that one of Trump's first acts is going to be creating an agency to convince the country that the world is actually flat, that we've been lied to this whole time. Just stoke the flames a little bit. I won't do that, but yeah, that should be fun. I apologize. I don't know. How do I feel about Trump's tariffs? Okay, I think that if the tariffs were implemented across the board, it would be a mistake. If the tariffs are being suggested, once more, very similar to what I said about Marco Rubio. If Marco Rubio's appointment is, okay, boy, let's keep sending money to Ukraine and bomb the shit out of people, then bad. If Marco Rubio's appointment is, hey, Russia, maybe it's time to come to the negotiating table because we're prepared to keep this thing going, then good. If tariffs are applied 100% across the board for 4 years, then bad. If tariffs are suggested to bring other countries to the bargaining table to say, whoa, we'll stop subsidizing our products, we'll stop tariffing your products, then good. We'll see. If tariffs are implemented, it will lead to an economic downfall short term because it'll take time for American industry to come back. It's not going to come back at the exact same time that the tariffs are there. Do I think there's any chance DOGE, the Government Efficiency Office, would deflate the Canadian government once we get rid of Trudeau? Deflate? Oh, you mean shrink the size of? Maybe. I don't think the U.S. government agency is going to shrink the size of the Canadian one. But yeah, I mean, Trudeau screwed up really bad. Is it nice to find my pessimism unwarranted? I don't think it was unwarranted. I think that it was a pessimistic attitude that encouraged me to work hard. I'm glad that I was wrong and Trump actually won, but it helped motivate me to work harder to do my little part that Trump could win, and I hope it did the same. And I hope that it motivated people surrounding Trump to have lawyers and watchers all over this country to make sure that there weren't sort of shenanigans that are occurring election day. But yeah, it's nice that I predicted he would lose and he won. I'm also predicting that his policies probably won't go anywhere near far enough to sort of stop the establishment corruption we're seeing. It'd be nice to be wrong about that as well. How do we feel about Trump's cabinet picks so far? I think they were decent. I talked about it at the beginning of the show. What do you think Vance will do? I don't know. I think that Vance will be more active, obviously, than Kamala Harris. I think a smart thing to do with Vance would be to be putting him in some sort of capacity to look at sort of government efficiency, like with that DOGE office that we were talking about. I think that would be a good place for him as someone who has a populist mindset. So sort of looking into that, and more importantly, looking into sort of the intel agencies. Where does Tulsi fit in Trump's administration? Probably something to do with foreign policy, I'm hoping. So some sort of envoy to sort of Secretary of State, something in that office would be my guess. Did I watch Vance on Joe Rogan? I did. He won me over with that. It seemed like a dude just shooting the shit in a barbershop. Yeah, I mean, this is something I said about Vance originally. There was a lot of skepticism from Vance from my circles because he had called Trump Hitler previously, and that he's a Peter Thiel guy, and that he's going to be this big, government, whatever. I thought that you could see the makings of a populist with J.D. Vance. He was clearly a very smart guy, and he seemed relatable, which is, of course, that means that the opposition is going to attack him as unrelatable. He's weird. And it didn't seem that way to me. He seemed quite normal compared to what we see with the average politician. I think that he did himself favors in the debate. I think it was the best VP debate victory and probably the most important one in my lifetime. And then I think the Rogan thing really put a capstone on that, where you could see that he's articulate, he's smart, he's a family guy, seems like basically a normal person. And if you were to believe the exit polling, of the four, Trump, Vance, Kamala, Walz, Vance was the only one with a net positive in likability. So if you ended up liking the guy and you heard the Democrats say, he's just too weird and blah, 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 that they tried to gaslight the American people for a month and a half. And remember, all the smart lefties that I debate, they all said, what a terrible pick. What a terrible pick Vance was. Well, I was saying it was good, so good job. Bubblegum Gun for $2 says, did Biden sabotage the DNC? Did he save America? I don't think he intentionally sabotaged, but I think he's happy. I think in his head he thinks I could have beat Trump. They forced me out. That's the other thing. I'm loving all of these articles coming out of media outlets that are like, Biden shouldn't have ran. He should have stepped down sooner. Dude, the only reason Biden didn't step down sooner was because every single person in the Democratic Party in the media that covers for them covered up Biden's cognitive health. And they're rewriting, I love, this sort of stuff happens and always makes me look back on history and go, holy shit, how many times have we been lied to? Because you'll see stuff happen in real time, and then you're told, no, never happened. Like lockdowns. How many times have you heard this? Actually, there weren't lockdowns. Where were the lockdowns? Are you shitting me? But I've heard that argument dozens of times from people I've been on panels or in debates with. What? I live in Pennsylvania. Yes, I could point to you my friends that own businesses that never opened back up because they got fucking locked down. Well, yeah, but they didn't physically weld you in your door. No shit. But they act like it didn't happen. Now it's the same thing, with defund the police. That was no one said that. None of us said defund the police. None of us said that. One second. Now it's the same with Biden's cognitive decline. Actually, the media and the Democrats called him out. That's the only reason that he had to step down, was because media and Democrats called him out. Yeah, no shit. They lied about it for years. And then once it was exposed on national television, they were like, again, I don't know how many times I have to repeat this. They didn't call Joe Biden out because they grew a conscience. They didn't call Joe Biden out because they didn't know that he had cognitive issues beforehand, but now they did. They didn't call him out because all of a sudden they became Trump supporters. They called Joe Biden out because they thought, oh shit, he's going to lose to Trump. So we need to get someone new in here. That's it. It doesn't get deeper than that. That's what they did. So for the people well, actually the Democrats did well. They called out Joe Biden. No! What they did was covered up for him until he default won the primary. And then once they could no longer cover it up because the American people saw and their internal polling showed, well, that's fucking it. Biden has zero chance to win now. They were like, oh shit, we need to get this guy out of here. So we'll force him out. Then we'll install someone, Kamala Harris. That's what they did. And Democrats are trying to rewrite history as actually, we did call him out. That's why Biden had to step down. It's surreal. Then remember the question I asked Democrat after Democrat. Put video after video out before the election, have done so after the election. How do you feel if you're a Democrat voter and you find out that you were lied to by almost your entire party and your entire media apparatus about Joe Biden's cognitive health until he won the primary, and then they forced him out afterwards? How do you feel? You didn't have a vote. You had no say in the fact that Kamala Harris, probably other than Joe Biden, the literal worst possible candidate, was selected without one vote from you. How does that make you feel? Oh, blah, blah, blah. Now, there's an article I saw that came out that said, actually, Nancy Pelosi's plan was to have a rushed primary. That was her plan. And Joe Biden came out and endorsed Kamala, which put the kibosh on that. Well, it sounds like Pelosi saying she's pissed off that there wasn't a primary, that Kamala Harris was installed. Sounds like what they're trying to say. But how can that be? When I made that same point, all the Democrats were like, you're wrong, Rob. We all voted for Kamala. We all wanted Kamala. Okie dokie. Worked out for me. Hey, why not double down? If I were you all, just skip the primary in 2028 and fucking install Kamala Harris again. Or Joe Biden. Right? Works for me. I don't give a shit. I'm not a Democrat. I'd be furious if the party I register at did that. I'd be absolutely livid. But not you all the Democrats I talk to. Okie dokie. Glad you're happy. Me too. Everybody's happy. Sounds good. I'm happy that Kamala was the candidate. Sounds great to me. Democrats are apparently happy. Everybody's happy. We finally have cohesion in the country. Awesome. Just take away the Democrats' right to vote in their own primary from here in perpetuity. Sounds good to me. It's hysterical. So, alrighty, that's an hour. Thank you so much. Got some stuff coming down the pipe. Still got to come up with an idea for my 10,000 subs on YouTube. If you haven't already given a thumbs up, if you enjoyed this video, please do so. If you didn't, leave a comment why instead of a thumbs up and tell me why I'm a piece of garbage, like Joe Biden said. Oh, I didn't talk about that, but I did plan on doing that FEMA story. Maybe we'll talk about that later in the week. Debate tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. Tune in. It should be fun. By the way, it's not going to be moderated. Hopefully we have a civil discussion that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe finally we'll get someone that'll school me. Finally. Wouldn't it be nice? That's what I need. Honestly, that would motivate me more than anything if I just get my ass kicked in one of these debates. Then I'll actually be like, God damn it, now I got to research, and that would be the light the fire under my ass. That would be it. So if you haven't given a thumbs up, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subbed to the channel, please sub to the channel. Trying to do content every day. Keep looking for those YouTube shorts. They're going to be coming out every day now. So I'm going to try to put more than one a day most days, but you know, that's where I'm at. All right, thank you all so much. We'll see you all tomorrow evening. As always, have a good one.